I think we are live. I'm in the wrong screen. That's okay. People are used to that. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our discussion about street epistemology. If you were careful, you might have already noticed that my guest today is Nathan Fergusen, AbstractActivistSE. Hey there.
Hi, hello. Good to be on
Today,
Vanilla
I want
SE.
to... this is discussion about.
Discussion about.
This is discussion about. Yeah, Vanilla SE is another one of the categories that we do. We do a lot of that. That's sort of the staple of almost all the other street epistemology channels. And for us, it's just one of the categories. So we're all things to all. Completely. Nathan, tell me about yourself. Or tell everybody else, because I know you.
Right. Well, that's a really broad. I don't even know where to start. I mean, I came across some street epistemology videos a while back, probably like 2 or 3 years ago, and was awestruck with how powerful it was. I have a degree, a Bachelor of Science in political science, and I've attempted to be an advocate for this or that for a long time, and was met with difficulty, especially when I met people who are conspiracy theorists or had particular epistemologies and couldn't quite put my finger on what I could do to reach people that had different epistemologies than me. And then when I found street epistemology, and then I actually put a word to it, epistemology, then I found that there was a much better way to talk with people. And I kind of wanted to develop my own brand of that. So I've made my channel AbstractActivistSE. It's kind of a mouthful, but I just had to pick a channel and run with the title at the time.
Okay.
And here I am.
FK, could you select, I think it might be streamer mode. I'm hearing some bings, and that might be from people coming in and out of the room. Oh, do not disturb them.
Yeah, it's my computer's in do not disturb mode, but Discord's still trying. Oh.
Just because with Discord it has to be different.
Sure. How do you do that?
Apparently they have outsourced the programming for the Android versus the Windows and
I'm on my Mac.
Mac to like separate countries.
I wonder if this button. Settings. Preferences, maybe?
Yeah, on Wednesday we're going to be doing book club. I know, because and we're going to be doing how to have impossible conversations. This is, as far as I'm concerned, the current and only manual you need regarding street epistemology. Not saying there aren't other good ones, but that's the only one you need. And we're going to be doing a book club for people who haven't read the book, presented by people who have read the book. And if you watch our thing, it's not going to be like a book on tape, but it's going to be at least the cliff note. Okay, so Nathan, you have what I might call it an idiosyncratic version of street epistemology. You avoid requiring your interlocutor to even bring a claim into the conversation, which means they have far less preparation required. They don't even have to figure it out what they're doing. Yes, that's a chicken. It's one of the chickens are a feature on my show.
That's great.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, chickens are a feature on my show and a feature in my life. In this process, you end up bringing a survey that you ask them questions to bypass the claim entirely and go directly toward asking about their epistemology. Could you tell us about that survey?
Yeah, so I try to do a couple different options when I like to table at festivals. There's no festivals this year because it's 2020, but I like to have a booth. There's many different ways you can do street epistemology. You can walk up to people on the street, or you can just present yourself somewhere in a park and let people come to you if they're curious. And I generally give them the option to either tell me something that they believe, or if they feel like that's too much on the spot, then I have a survey, and given the option, I'd say it's pretty 50-50. People will choose the survey because they're curious to know what might be on it. And that's when I go and use the survey as opposed to drilling whatever claim they happen to have.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So you just give them the option. What do you see
do.
as the advantages in one approach versus the other?
You can sometimes ask people what they believe and why, and get a really mundane, low-hanging fruit claim like compassion is good or goodness is good, something like that. And you can SE that, but it's not very interesting or as interesting. It can be interesting. You can try to make it interesting.
It
But
can lead to interesting. But if it's strictly definitional, it's like...
Yeah. If somebody says the earth is round, it's like, I don't even want to see that. Personally, I'm just like, that's not that interesting to me. So
okay.
I usually will say, okay, we can talk about that if you want, but what would maybe be more fun is if you give me your opinion on this survey, and there's almost always a misalignment of understanding on one of the 24 principles on that survey. And then that can provoke an interesting discussion. And the advantage of that is it takes the pressure off of the person that you're talking to and makes a general discussion about these principles instead. And it can provoke an interesting discussion that might get them thinking about some beliefs that they have down the line. And the benefits also is that they get to take it home. So it can be homework.
Yeah. You told me at one point you had 300 copies of it, and now you have 3. Are you going to make another print run? Yeah.
I do need to go back to FedEx office and get a bunch more printed out. Yeah.
Okay. We will make sure to add a link in the doobly-doo where Street Epistemology International has on a Google Drive a PDF of the survey in question. Let me bring up that survey. It fits on one page. That's all good. And what I'd like to do with you is go through the survey with you and have you answer your honest position on that survey. And I have someone who's going to play professional devil's advocate and argue, no matter what you say, they're going to argue the opposite. Because I've heard some really fascinating responses that you have when somebody is apart from you on the survey. And so I'd love for people to get to hear those. Let's see. Scroll up to the first question. I'm not controlling this scrolling.
I see. You've got to help me.
Truth is that which best matches reality.
Yeah, I agree to that statement.
Okay, is this an agree or a strongly agree? So we have a five position Likert scale: strongly agree, neutral, strongly disagree, strongly disagree.
Right. Other than being neutral on something, I'm always strongly opposed or for it. So you'll never hear me say somewhat agree, unless maybe the only exception would be number 14. It's important to know where we came from and what happens after death.
Right.
I don't know. That one's just kind of like a way to gauge somebody's temperament, mood, thoughts. It's just a way to provoke discussion. So it doesn't really matter how you mark that one that much. But for the most part, I strongly agree. Yeah.
So, devil's advocate, what do you think? Is truth that which best matches reality?
I would imagine, since reality, I would argue almost against reality, that you can never know what the truth of the reality is. And since our perceptions shape our own reality, you can never have, you could have subjective truth with a collective subjective, but other than that's the best that we could ever have.
Okay.
Yeah, so this survey originally had external reality put in, and I was met with more opposition to that word than almost anything else on the list. So there's a version of the survey where the word external is in there, and a version where it's not. Just to make so that way we don't confuse people. You generally have a discussion about what do we mean by external, but the word external was in there so that way we could avoid problems of true for. So, like my favorite movie is The Fifth Element. That's true for me. I think that's the best movie, right?
Okay.
However, it doesn't. The word external might not need to be in there because my preference is in the external world. So it might be unnecessary, which is why we took it out. There's still a debate about whether or not it's better to leave it in or better to take it out. Whenever somebody disagrees to number one, I open my mind to the possibility that disagree is the best place to be. And I ask them questions that would make me also believe them and try to understand what they mean by disagreeing to that statement. What is it that they're objecting to? So my question would be, if truth is not a description which best matches, then what is truth? And I just put the ball in their park and I get them to explain to me what truth is.
Reading
to them.
What is truth?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, the closest that we can get to truth is a collaboration. If you get, or a consensus, if you get enough people agreeing to one fact, then it becomes truth. But as soon as you get enough people disagreeing with that fact, it becomes untrue. So it's the sky is blue. The reason the sky is blue is because everyone looks up and sees it blue. There may be a few people that see it a different color, but they're they're the outliers, so they don't count. It's the collective consensus. If the collective consensus said, "Oh, the sky is purple," then automatically it becomes the sky is purple is true.
Yeah. So a major benefit of this method is to have your interlocutor fill out the whole thing, and then you can use other points on the survey to check for consistency.
Okay. So before you feed back.
Number 10 on the survey is if all members of a society share a belief, they are justified to hold that belief. And generally, people will disagree to that, generally speaking. And so if somebody were to tell me that the number of people believing in a thing is the thing that makes something true, then I would ask them why they would disagree to number 10 and also disagree to number 1 for those reasons. There's I think a similar one on here about the number of people. Yeah, I think
I'm sure we'll come to it in time.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, of course.
Because I have trouble when we keep trying to talk about opinions on street epistemology as something that is true. I just don't. I don't know. It's more like an open question. I have trouble of if you talk about blue is my favorite color, and then street epistemology that it's okay, I understand you can street epistemology that someone states that blue is their favorite color, but I don't think opinions are in the matter of reality and truth, because you could be lying and strongly defending that, and I can apply street epistemology. That doesn't make any truth on this statement of blue is the best or is something. And because when you have to finish that with, to me, it's something so personal that I cannot even verify.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
If blue is your favorite color and you tell me blue is your favorite color, is that a description that's matching reality?
Well, that would be even maybe to explore my opinion and maybe expose to myself that maybe it's not true that I like blue the most. Maybe I would end up look, I like
Sure.
purple because, and you ask me like, why do you think you like purple? And I'm gonna tell you like, well, because I have a bunch of purple items, and then right next after that, I rationalize that in fact, I'm not buying the purple because I like it the most, but maybe because of the options I have in front of me, or reduced to me for be forced to pick the purple, and in the end, I buy more purple things trying to match the other things I have. And then in the end, I feel like I do really like purple more than the other colors. But if I go to deeply
So
make
these
an
are all
analysis of
reasons.
that,
So Fanny, these are all reasons for why you would delegate or, change your mind about what your favorite color is. What we're discussing right now is whether or not a truth claim is categorized as something that is accurate. So if blue is not your favorite color, but you tell me that it is, would you call that true?
yeah, I guess so. Some sense. But that is the point. It's like now I'm going to the deep analysis of the word truth, because it's like, is that truth? Is that the blue is my favorite color, or I'm just like doing that and not wrongly analyzing the result? There
Yeah.
are other factors that are making me choose purple, and now I think, or whatever, blue, and then in the end I'm like, oh, I really like this color, when in fact that's not truth. So
So this
truth,
is why.
it
So
is.
this is. So Fanny, this is why the word external was originally on the survey. It's because there's a difference between true for in epistemology versus capital T truth. Like the truth about the world in which you and I both share. So a claim about the planet Earth being a sphere versus being flat has truth value to that. You can give truth value to claims about our shared reality, though it's much more difficult to discern the value of your own personal matter of taste. So if you have a claim about a matter
No,
of
but that
taste,
was my point, because like the Earth being flat or round, it's a fact that doesn't change about even if my opinion is different, it doesn't change. It's something that we can all go there. Is something factual that we can all go there and
sure,
verify. But
right?
the point of the opinion is that something that we cannot verify, and that was the point of like, maybe opinions should not put in the matter of being truth,
Well, here's the thing: if you're
or
lying
it being
about your opinion,
factual
if you're
in that
lying,
way, because we cannot verify. I
is it
just think
possible?
like yeah.
Is it possible? Is it possible to lie about your opinions?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Okay. If you didn't lie about your opinions,
I
would
could. You could ask me like, Fanny, what's your favorite color? Look, we talking to each other, okay? And I really want to impress you in the first date.
uh-huh.
And I still really like blue. And I kind of like purple, and they're kind of almost the same color. And wow, what is the problem of me telling you that I really like blue? So it's like, that's the thing. It's like, am I saying such a thing that is a lie in the end? Maybe not, because it's just opinion,
As
and
a
we
rule,
cannot
I
even
will take
verify.
somebody's word as to their subjective opinion.
Yeah.
I don't have to have high confidence that they are correct about it, but I can take as an acting theory that if you tell me something of your subjective opinion, that I'll just treat it on face value that it's correct. So for me, that's the truth about your reporting of your subjective opinion, and that reporting could be inaccurate is something I allow for.
More
Yeah, I
often
just
than
think,
not, the argument that I usually hear when people disagree is people will say they won't say they won't be talking like, we're familiar with street epistemology, so we are bringing up subjective things and how to talk to people who bring up subjective things. But there are people out there that
yeah,
bring up objective things um, as if descriptions about objective matters matching reality isn't what truth is. And those people are hard to understand. So my go-to question generally is, was there anything true before you were born? As a great way to get their thoughts on how on what truth is. If there was a reality that existed before you were born, it's basically like the ultimate, does a tree fall in the woods? If a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound kind of question? But it puts the onus entirely on objectivity and subjectivity and how those things relate.
That would depend on how far are you from the tree, because now we're talking about sound waves. And
Yeah.
Sure.
So some people will
Okay,
say,
I'd like to go on to the next.
Yeah, please.
yeah,
Let's
no,
do
it
that.
was really good. Keep
Yeah.
going. I
We
just
are
need to tell you
1/24
guys
through,
are my
and we're already
favorite
20
ones.
minutes in. We'll never make it if we go at this rate.
Number one gets
Okay,
hung
the
up on
next
a lot,
question.
Mhm.
Yeah. Next question for. It's not that one. Can you read the next question off? It's
I
not the
can.
one that's currently showing.
I've got it in front
Go
of me
ahead.
too. People
Yes, please.
experience the same reality and only interpret it differently.
Okay. And what is your opinion on that?
People do experience the same reality. We just interpret it differently. Yeah, I agree strongly. Yeah.
And Redding, do you have an opposition to that?
Sorry, this one's kind of hard to steal, man. Sorry.
It is.
Well,
I'll take it. I think we are in obviously separate realities because realities come from our own mind. If I start with that,
Mhm.
I think therefore I am, and I look out and see, well, it's obvious that the physical world is created from inside my own head. So why would you assume that we have the same reality? Why would you even assume that I exist? Or why should I even assume that you exist? Strongly disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, man, I should have known that. I should have grabbed that one.
Okay,
So-
I accept that one. It's a good one. I could be just something created by your imagination.
Well, there's the Berkeley theory, where that reality is nothing but minds, and reality is nothing but the perception of minds, and each mind creates its own reality. And of course, with Berkeley's theory, it's linked to a higher power, the ultimate observer type thing. But yeah.
Yeah, so my question would be to just, I would get somebody to explain why they would disagree, and I'd listen for how they use the word reality. Reality, just like the word truth, just like the word love, just like the word justified, is often used with different definitions. And as a practitioner, I try to never correct the definition of my interlocutor. I go with their definition of that word, but I'd usually vote to pick a different word. So I try to illustrate my thinking in question form using a different word, and I like to use the word game or Mario Kart because a lot of people are familiar with games and familiar with Mario Kart, and they usually have emotional attachment to winning. So I just appeal to their own emotional attachment to winning and fairness. So I say, if you and I are in the same room and we're playing Mario Kart together and you're in first place, I usually say they're in first place, make them feel better, and I'm in second place, are we on the same console, on the same TV, and in the same room? If we zoom out, are we together in this game? And if you win first place, do we both experience you winning first place, though we might disagree how we interpret your winning? Maybe you get, the blue shell with the spikes on it at the very last second when you're in last, and you get the first place player, and now you're in first place with a second to spare, and we might find that unfair, right? that's the way we interpret it. But the game does the game only give one result as to who won the game? We might disagree how it turns out, but isn't there only one way things went down between us? And that's a way of asking about reality, as I interpret it, is the laws of physics and our environment. And so I try to think of something else that fits my definition and give a new word for that. And then I just replace the word reality with Mario Kart.
And you duplicate reality.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of different ways you can question this one. That's just the one that I like the most because it seems to always get my point across in question form and generally gets people to shift on that one. Yeah.
Okay. Truth depends on the opinions and beliefs of people.
Yeah, that was a great strong. That was probably the one I was looking for when we were steel manning the disagree for number one, which is truth is that which best matches. And the argument I was hearing was, if majority consensus thinks a thing is true, that's the standard by which we deem it true. And I would just ask about history and how throughout history, the collective hive mind thought the earth was flat. At the time that the majority thought the earth was flat, did that mean that a description about the earth being flat was correct? Was that the correct way to interpret reality? Just because the number of people thought it? So if truth depends on the opinions and beliefs of people, does that mean bloodletting, for example, which is a practice in medicine a long time ago? People would take the bad blood out of you, right? And it caused a lot of unnecessary suffering and
We
harm.
still need to do in some conditions.
Say what?
Yeah, but not like we used to. We understand it a lot better.
Yeah, right. We used to
Yeah,
just do
we
it.
still
all
need
the time.
we still need to bleed people in some conditions. Just like it's not completely off. Before it was more like just doing it for, let's see if it works.
Yeah.
Now we know when to apply.
Sure. I'm no doctor. I would just say it was an overused practice back then. It's like a well-known thing, which is why I go for it. But I could go for a bunch of other things. Like there's so many examples. Like everyone thought that
I
the sun
actually
revolved
prefer
around
to
the
use
earth. Everyone thought the sun revolved around the earth. That's another good one. And before that was
maybe
common
they
knowledge.
changed their way.
Before it was
Maybe
common
they what?
knowledge. Go ahead.
Oh, well. Okay. I didn't hear what Fanny said. She said maybe the something, but
Oh,
okay. We'll keep going. Do we have any words from the loyal opposition?
I didn't hear his opinion on it.
His
truth,
opinion
I
is
agree.
this is strongly false.
Strongly false, right? Yeah. Truth does not depend on the opinions and beliefs of people.
Okay. So I got to take the opposite. So actually, I do believe, because reality is built within yourself, that the truth for you is slightly different or completely different for the truth for me, depending on the stimuli. Again, we could go see. You could use the group opinion, but it's with this specific question. It is saying the belief of what was it? Sorry, what was the exact question again?
Truth depends on the opinions and beliefs of people.
Yes. So it's not really a collective thing. Is When you're talking about a society whole, then that's where the collective comes into play. When you have to interact with other people, you have to share the same truths, and that's where the agreement between the group comes into play. But on an individual basis, you can hold your own truths. You can, God is real, that is my truth, that is my reality. So it's to support that reality, I need my belief to support that reality.
So I'd probably start by building a golden bridge a little bit and say, yeah, I can see why you might think that, like, for example, if I were communicating something true and yet it wasn't effective in getting the point across to communicate what's going on, then the sentence doesn't work to effectively communicate. And if I'm not effectively communicating, then the sentence isn't, while it might be true, it loses its utility. So that might be my little golden bridge there, to try to see if I can agree to whatever point you just made. But then I would go down further on my list, and almost all the time, only once have I ever had anyone disagree with number 24. Number 24 is really useful to countercheck a lot of these. And 24 says, "It is possible that some of my beliefs are not true." So I would, if somebody agrees to 24, which is almost always is the case, I would ask what's happening there. If people's opinions and beliefs are one way, but the truth is another, how is it possible that your beliefs are not true? If you strongly believe them, if the majority of people believe them, then what's happening when a majority is incorrect? And just
Okay.
see what they...
Just to take the other side, your lower back is killing you right now. It's been killing you for 5 years. You go into the doctor, you get an MRI, doesn't show anything, and they say, "Oh, it's all in your head." Does that mean that pain does not exist?
So it doesn't. Though I would bring it to the
You're in pain though. You can't even stand up straight. So does that pain exist?
I think he said
or doesn't
it doesn't
exist?
mean that, as opposed to doesn't exist.
Right.
Oh, okay,
and
sorry.
Yeah, and I would just bring things. I would ask them if there's a difference between truth claims about our shared reality and truth claims about our personal subjective experience.
And that was what I was getting at with the question.
It's another good reason why the word external is in number 1, as a way of separating statements that are true for and statements that are capital T true.
I'm of the opinion that external really should be in that first question. Because you're right, it does.
I hear it.
I've met with so many people, though, it's hard because leaving it in, I've had a lot of people become uncomfortable with that word external. And it's a little bit more layman to leave it out. Also, it might be an unnecessary qualifier. So, for example, if you do experience pain in your low back, if I do experience pain, that and I'm being honest, maybe my honesty is the only thing that really matters here. Maybe because if my mind is in the external world, then a description about what's happening in my mind, so long as it's consistent and honest, would best match the external world. So it's tricky. It's just a matter of whether or not you think using this word external is helpful, depending on who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm. We went through this questionnaire while I was on the chessboard on Sunday, and it's the first somebody said, "I want to go through the questionnaire before we go into regular claims." I said, "Great," and it took an hour and 15.
Yeah.
At the rate we're currently going, we're going to be something about 4.5 hours. So we're going to either have to skip or go really fast. The next question is, people create words and define their meaning.
Yeah, I strongly agree to that.
Okay.
Almost no
Opposition?
one will disagree. Most of the time, you won't really see one. But if you do, the opposition to this, I mean, I would just say, is there anything other than people that create words and define what they mean? And hear what they have to say.
So does the question pertain to people as a whole or people as an individual? Like, if you
Do
were
people
talking
create their
to,
own words and their own meanings individually?
can they?
I
But
can.
like that, like the question, I'm not saying as
Oh.
but is the question pertaining to the individual or as a group as a whole? Because then you could have you could have a, like, the N word to larger society is taboo, but to a select few it's perfectly fine. So it has completely different meanings, it has completely different connotations. So you have the exact same word having two completely different meanings.
Yeah, and I would just say that this just gives us an opportunity to talk about how words work and how they help us understand one another. And the discussion from here would just be me asking questions about how words work to kind of illustrate the point that words are not innate, and yet they do describe our shared reality. Just they're meant to help us understand one another and describe our shared reality. And I would just ask questions that help illustrate that, or that would reveal, or that would reveal that they're innate in some way, because maybe they are. I don't know.
Is something true if everyone agrees to it?
That's number 5. Something is true if everyone agrees to it. No.
Okay. Ready? Is it true if everyone agrees?
Of course,
Of course it is. Argument ad populum. Oh, wait.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I just ask questions about, flat Earth or the sun revolves around the Earth. It's the same sort of deal that we talked about with number 10. If all members of a society share a belief, they're justified to hold that belief. Both number 5 and number 10 are related in that way. And if there's an inconsistency in the way that they fill out the survey, you can just use the other number to reference that one. Well, looks like you have marked a different over here. What are the reasons why you did that? And they can actually explain themselves out of that one.
Okay. Would you like to skip through? Do you have some favorite questions that would be the best for us to address, given that we have 20 minutes and almost
Sure.
3/4 of the list left?
I'd say
I'm going to put extra stress on my production crew to bam and slam through it.
Let's do number 6 and then 13 through 18. Number 6 is strong belief, even without action, can change external reality. I strongly disagree with that, generally because the spirit of that statement is to call into question whether or not prayer works or law of attraction works or anything like that. And this is a great way to talk about how our beliefs do our best to understand and reflect reality, or is it the other way? Is it that do our beliefs make reality different? And a common thing I hear people say is that belief is an action. I've heard people argue this all the time. And if people say that belief is an action and that's why they're agreeing to number 6, I just go with it. Because to me, I just say, okay, that's fine. The whole point is to see whether or not prayer works or law of attraction works and that sort of thing. But yeah, if somebody thinks beliefs in action and beliefs are consequential and they can change the external world when you change minds, then I have no problem with that.
Okay. Any opposition?
I would push back against the word belief pertaining to only religious connotations. So I could, like, the first person in a squirrel suit believed that his design was going to make him fly through the air. And it was that belief that pushed him to jump off the cliff. And hence it introduced the squirrel suit to the world. The first engineers believed that they could build a building 50 stories high. And that belief pushed them to do it.
Yeah.
In both cases, I'm clearly able to identify the action that was required for the change.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Kidding. Okay. And then 13 through 18, you said? Can I have 13?
Yeah, 13 through 18 are the ones that you're probably going to find the most pushback on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will you read 13 for us?
You know what? I do want to hit number
While my
11 just
people
because
catch up.
number 11
Hit
is
number 11. We're going to throw
one of
you
my
a
favorite
curveball.
ones. Yeah.
She's
Believing
really
something
fast. I just keep throwing curveballs.
Sure. Number 11 is believing something that is false feels just like believing in something that is true. So that one gets people to think a lot. So I recommend, if you do the survey, to hit that one real nice and slow, because it will bring to light some really interesting discussion. If somebody marks disagree, which is actually pretty common, then you just ask them to tell you a story of a time where they had their minds changed. And when they had their minds changed, did the new understanding of what's true feel just like the truth value of the old understanding that they once had? So it's a way of getting us to empathize with our past self, and also to empathize with all the other people out there that are mistaken about their idea. And a good way to build an emotional bridge between people that have bad understandings.
Yeah, I
So-
figure Reading is just absolutely certain that there's a big difference in the feeling. Could you describe that difference for me?
No, sorry, you're gonna have to take this one because I agree too much.
Yeah, I hear you. That can be a difficult one. I mean, for me, I can definitely tell the difference between feeling a false belief and a true one, because when I have a false belief, I just don't have that like inner confidence and burning in the bosom. But when it becomes true, the burning in the bosom is throughout my.
Right. So yeah, you'll get
from a Mormon. I'm sorry,
some,
LDS.
There are some religious arguments. I get this a disagreement on this one from people that are usually staking a claim in some sort of usually a moral claim. So if somebody does want to present to me a moral claim, whether it's veganism or some stake in some issue about morality, this is where a disagreement is most likely to come up. Yeah. Anything else on that, or should we go to 13?
Let's see, number 13. Let's go to 13.
Yeah.
And that, could you read that one for me?
Sure. Believing something without evidence is admirable. So I love the wording of this one, because the word is admirable. So do we admire believing in things without the basis of evidence? And that's kind of like something that I aspire to always have my beliefs only on the basis of evidence. So this is a great way to see if somebody has a different understanding or idea on that, and to see why they would mark differently.
I don't. If I got your opinion right, that you don't admire people that just believe without evidence, and I actually do. I don't know if admire is the right word, but I kind of envy those that can do that. So like I've mentioned a number of times that sometimes I actually wish I was a Christian. I wish I could believe in a God. And the reason why is because of the comfort that I see that these people get from believing not only in a higher power, but also like they have a purpose in life, that they weren't just some cosmic accident, that there was someone that loved them so much that they created them. That belief, like specifically for someone like my mother, gives her life meaning, rather than being some old lady with with two bad knees living by herself, right? It's that belief of a higher power gives her purpose in life, and I envy that.
Yeah, my response is
Mm.
would if this were like let's see if I can pretend this is very real for a moment. I would probably use an outsider test and ask if somebody else came here who also agreed with this principle that believing in something without evidence is admirable. I would just ask how, if there was a difference between you and somebody else, and they were believing in something because they didn't need evidence to believe it, how would you resolve your difference with them? And I just ask how you could go about resolving your difference with somebody else who is using this principle to believe in what they're believing.
Ooh, nice.
Mhm.
Next question.
It is important to know where we came from and what happens after death. So there's a lot of different ways you can go with this one. I sometimes will skip this for brevity's sake, though it can facilitate an interesting discussion. If somebody agrees or disagrees, I just ask them why and get them to start explaining. And if somebody disagrees, it's usually because they have objections to knowing things which we can't know. And if people agree to it, it's generally because they think things we don't know are important to try to figure out. But if people are saying it's important to know even if we can't figure it out, then that opens up a can of worms of, well, why would you say you know something if there's no access to that information? And you can have a discussion about that. But I generally,
if it's unknowable,
right. I generally ask about, was there if evolution is true, would that be important to know? Or sometimes I bring it to an existential kind of route and say, if there is no afterlife after you're dead, would it still be important to you now to try to facilitate the very best of all, the very best world for everybody that continues to live after you're dead, as a way of getting people to empathize with the rest of the world, even when you have nothing at stake? It's kind of an existentialist question there. It's just a good point to kind of gauge the pulse of your interview partner. There's no right or wrong answer to that one. So you can just answer it however you...
Yeah, so don't need to hear from the opposition on this one, whether it is or not, because you're sort of in the middle.
Yep.
Next question. Believing something that is false is okay if it gives you comfort.
Yeah. This one was really hard for me for a really long time. This one's really common. I will commonly get people who will say that they let's see here, believing something that's false is okay if it gives you comfort. People will agree to that because they often recognize within themselves that they have comfortable beliefs that they hold just because they're comfortable, and that's the main reason they do it. And that's really honest. If people will admit that, I start by acknowledging their honesty if they just come out that straight with it. Though, again, outsider test is really helpful here. And I just ask, usually I get them to give me an example of a time in which they were a time in which they had a dispute, a factual dispute with somebody, like a friend or a family member. Can you give me an example of a time in which a friend or family member believed in something that you strongly disagreed with, and how did you go about resolving that difference? And generally, they'll tell you a story.
Well, I blocked them on
about something
Facebook,
that
of course.
happened.
I'm kidding.
Right. And then I'll say, well, how did you resolve the difference? And they almost always say, I presented these facts, or I asked these questions, and they came around to my understanding and my way of thinking. And I would just say, okay, that's great. I'm glad that happened. However, if they just said, you know what, it doesn't matter because it's comfortable to me, so I'm just going to hold on to this idea no matter what you say, what would you think about that person? How would you think about their claim, about their belief, if it was being supported by the comfort it's giving them and only that? And that's a way of kind of putting the pressure on that principle. That one's a really
Rennie,
hard
do you
one
have any
because people will
defense
often,
of the noble lie?
right, and people will often appeal to their they will appeal to their sense of their ability to tolerate many different ideas. And this comes up time and time again when you do the survey. People will confuse accepting a belief with tolerating one. And so I try to distinguish those two different words. We would tolerate their belief, for sure. We would tolerate all beliefs. I mean, that's how we have discourse in the first place and are able to have this talk. But the question is not whether or not we would tolerate it. Is it a good reason to think a thing is true? Is it a justified reason? And so
Justified is one of those weird words. People tend to think of it in the legalistic sense, like a justified killing.
right.
And that's not what we mean. We mean something that has prior reason that justifies a conclusion. Something that's good enough to come to a conclusion is what philosophical. Those are such different terms, such different meaning.
Yes. And I try my best not to give my own definitions for words during an SE interview, though justified is one of those words where I will offer my own definition before. I'll just say, like, so this word justified is really sticky here, but it's important for the survey. Is it okay if I tell you my definition of that word? Just that way we see eye to eye, just because that one's really tough for some people. So and it's important for the survey. So justified is one of those words. But yeah, believing something that is false is okay if it gives you comfort. Comes up all the time, and I think the best way to handle it is with an outsider test. But just, listen to what you're hearing. Maybe they have good reasons for saying it's true. I can personally think of a couple of reasons why I would agree. Like, for example, grandma is on her deathbed, and is it an appropriate time to do an SE interview with grandma? Honestly, at that point, I'd just say it's fine for that person to believe in things that are only comfortable and not at all true. I think there are times when that's fine, though I still nonetheless feel strongly about this, that I personally, and it's important to put the emphasis on the person you're talking to and not people by and large. So I would reiterate, would you personally ever believe something that is false? Just because it gives you comfort, and that redirects the conversation back onto that person. Yeah. And that's number 15.
Okay. The next one is, I give all claims the benefit of the doubt when I first encounter them.
Yeah, so this one is a good old, I have a car. I think I got this from Anthony first, and then
The Ferrari test, yeah.
Yeah, the Ferrari test. The way I do the Ferrari test is I'm going to give 3 claims. I have a car, I have a second car, and I have an invisible car, and put those 3 claims on the scale. Yeah.
Okay.
So only because I find that people will try to, because my goal is to pick 3 claims, which just when you first hear them makes you highly confident, makes you slightly question it, and then the third one should make you doubt it, right? To illustrate the fact that we all do this all the time, and we put all claims on a scale in our own minds when we first hear them. And I have a car, I have a second car, because it's possible I don't have a car, but it's not at all doubtful. I mean, lots of people have cars, so that would be a claim that would be given high confidence. I have a second car, follows the first one, though because it's 2 qualifiers, I have to have 2 cars. Therefore, it's the more detail you add to the claim, the more likely it is to drop on the scale. So that should give you a number that's less than the first one. And then the third one is I have an invisible car, but there is no example of any invisible cars, so we would just we would doubt it by the default position would be to reserve.
Well, Wonder Woman has an invisible jet. There's an example.
Right? Yeah, you see me, but you don't see the jet, just like Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I saw an ad for a pickup done in camo. All I could see were the 4 tires in the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
It's great,
Yeah.
great ad on Craigslist for a pickup with great camo. Yes, indeed.
number
FK, give
17.
Tesla a few years; they will have invisible cars if that's something Elon asks for.
That'd
that
be
becomes
cool.
Important. Someone is justified in their beliefs until they are proven wrong.
Yeah. So this is the most intense, by far, in my experience. This is the most intense and heated point of discussion on the entire survey. So I always say proceed with caution on number 17.
Okay.
Number 17 is kind of an equivalent to the faith question. So,
So we need to be very cautious about the prime numbers, including 14. I'm kidding. That was a red herring.
Oh, right. Yeah. Number 17 is someone is justified in their beliefs until they are proven wrong. And some people have their entire epistemology predicated on number 17. In my experience, I've seen people who just predicate all of their thought process on number 17 and haven't really talked about it out loud. And they'll hold many, many beliefs because of number 17, because no one's showed me that I'm wrong. So I'm justified to say that it's true until you prove me otherwise, right?
Right. So they end up, I can tell when that happens when they're arguing for the possibility of a thing rather than the probability of it.
Yeah, and they'll confuse their the possibility of something being true and the odds of something maybe being true with their confidence, which comes up a lot. Like if we do the tic tac thing, and I say, is it true that the number in here of tic tacs must be either even or odd? People generally agree to that. And then I'll say, if somebody came here and they said that they were even, what would you tell that person? And they might just say, yeah, they might be right. I said, they could be right? What are their odds? Well, their odds are 50-50 that they're even. Okay. But what's your confidence that they're even? And they'll say 50, because they'll confuse the confidence with the odds or probability.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah. I have a 3 sigma confidence that the odds are 50-50.
Yeah. So number 17, someone is justified in their beliefs until they are proven wrong. My favorite way of addressing this, and it depends on who I'm talking to. If somebody is basing a lot of their belief system on number 17, then I might be hesitant to use this thought experiment. But I just bring up mermaids. or even better, I ask my interlocutor to bring up something that they do not think is true. That's a commonly held belief.
Okay.
And hopefully they pick something that we agree is false. If they pick something like mermaids is a really great example because it's a belief claim that is not in any defined place. So there's nowhere to look, which makes it pertinent to number 17. So if someone out there were believing in mermaids, but the only reason they were believing in mermaids is because someone is justified to believe in mermaids until you show them that there are no mermaids out there, is it possible that this person is stuck believing that there are mermaids forever?
Yes. I believe in the remote possibility of mermaids.
Right. So then the question becomes, if there are no mermaids and yet someone believes that there are mermaids, and that person is now stuck forever, one of the questions you can ask is, would it be better to withhold belief in mermaids until there is evidence of mermaids? Or should we believe that there actually are mermaids until you show them that they're not there? And if they're not in a defined place and there's nowhere to look, are we forever stuck believing in a thing that's not true?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
so
one's a
Santa.
really
Yes,
tough
of
one for a
course.
lot of people.
Yeah, indeed. Do you have any others that we would like to touch on?
Just number 24,
Okay.
because it is really helpful. This is something that took me a long time to learn, in the sense that I didn't realize how useful number 24 is. Almost always people will agree to number 24. Only once has anyone ever disagreed to number 24 that I've done in my 300 interviews.
Okay.
You use their understanding of 24 to apply to the rest of the worksheet. If somebody says it is possible,
so
for
real
their
good
beliefs
reason
not
to have them get to the bottom of the worksheet before you start reviewing the question.
It does help out. If you hand them the survey, have them fill it out and hand it to you. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. You can just go line by line, and that's how I started doing it. But I found that it was actually better to have everything all out, and then I just mark on the survey where we have disagreements, where my conversation partner and I disagree, and I just mark a little arrow next to those ones, and I almost always circle number 24 to reference things like number 1, which is what truth is. And and that's it.
Okay. So the crowd, I thank you, Redding, for stepping way outside your comfort zone to play steelman to all of these things and give us a chance to use you as a virtual punching bag. I hope it didn't sting.
Appreciate it.
Let's see. Does anybody in the room have any? Make sure you're all unmuted. Does anybody in the room have any questions or comments for Nathan, or about the survey, or about what we've talked about today? I've given you almost no time to talk. Go ahead, Reddy.
Nathan, what's the weirdest answer that you've gotten to one of these survey questions? Like one that you think the person did just some amazing mental gymnastics to answer?
It's always when it's actually more common than you'd think. It's when somebody strongly disagrees to number 1. And they'll say truth is not a description that best matches. They'll say, I think the weirdest objection to the survey is actually quite common, and it's when people say that I've had somebody actually illustrate it quite interestingly to me, that truth was a spectrum that I only have access to one sliver of the spectrum of truth, and somebody else has a sliver to an entirely separate section of truth, which is how two people can both believe in opposing things, and they can both be correct about the same shared reality. And that to me is a little isolating to think about, that no one will ever understand you.
So it's kind of like the only thing that I can be sure of is that I think, therefore I am. If that's the only truth you could ever know, you can never know actual truth. So reality can never be a reflection of truth, or truth can never be a reflection of reality.
Yeah, I just stay real curious on that one and just ask some questions about it. They could be right about that. I could have the wrong interpretation of what truth is. Maybe I'm totally wrong. I like to go into all this every single time with the thought that I want to be a representative for the curious out there, and what questions, if answered in a way that I don't expect, or if I'm open to new information, what questions could I ask that would make me believe the other person? So if somebody strongly disagrees with number one, I would ask the questions that would persuade me to agree with them if they had good answers.
Zcools, I think you were the one who brought the survey with me in the talk yesterday. Is that correct?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, just barely, but well enough.
Oh, sorry, I'm in the car. Just getting
That's
off work.
okay. Yeah, I appreciate you joining us. I think you were the one who brought the survey yesterday in our talk.
Yes.
Yes.
I brought it up because I like it a lot. Someone that's new to SE.
We should mention Ben Diesel too, because he made it.
Oh yeah. He was actually in the room here 40 minutes ago, but maybe he's just watching on YouTube at this point. Ben Diesel, yay, you rock, man.
Ben Diesel.
So, Zcools, is there anything that we talked about today that added to your understanding? And is there anything that we talked about yesterday that we didn't get to today that you think is important to bring into the conversation?
I think we talked about one that I've had issue. Someone who says the truth is something that is. I have a lot of really understand what I'm saying. Well, it's true for.
You're cutting in and out, so I'm hearing understand what you're saying, true for me, but I'm not really getting the thread of it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Not anymore.
Hello?
Yeah,
it's
go
not
ahead.
consistent.
Are you sure you can?
Yeah, I think it's cutting out. I think he was basically bringing up,
Yeah,
what we'll say, true for me.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. True for statements. Yeah, so that's why the word external was in there, though in my experience, it has thrown people off. Also, I took it out on after talking about the survey with other content creators. Other SE content creators have told me that they're not really sure why external was in there, because it really might not actually be necessary. The thing is if you make a truth claim that's true for, that's about your opinion, it's possible to lie, right? And if you lie and you're not being honest, then that's not matching reality. So it doesn't need to necessarily be external if we include our minds in the external world. Though it does get muddied when we start talking about abstract concepts that don't really exist, that are just more abstract. So yeah, that's why the word external.
The square root of -1.
Right.
That's on the edge of things. We could talk about that. But anyway, yeah, it's a good example of something else.
Yeah. If anyone plans on ever using this survey, my strongest piece of recommendation for anybody seriously considering doing this with somebody they know,
Mhm.
is to record your conversation. You don't need to do a
Mhm.
video recording. Maybe ask
need to
for
publish it.
consent to do it. You don't need to publish it either.
Right.
But doing an audio recording of your interviews, at least for me, has been the most helpful thing. Just for example, I listened because I was on the show last week,
Mhm.
and then I
You were the guest
listened
interview
to
with
it
Vin
again
Diesel
while-
last week.
Yeah, right. And then I went on a walk, and I just remember thinking to myself, "Oh man, I can't stop talking." And I realized that I was talking too much, and then I realized I wasn't listening, even though like the whole object is to try to take our ego out of this, and to when we're interviewing somebody, and to go real slow and try to understand them. And even on this show, I couldn't do that last week.
Yeah, I agree.
So-
My object is to take your ego out.
Right. Record yourself, listen back. You will discover things about yourself that you didn't know was there. And when you do that, you will improve. You will hear yourself, and you won't forget it, and you'll do better the next time. Record yourself and listen back to yourself. It's real. It's if you're interested in doing SE, that's the number one biggest piece of advice I can give you by far.
That is a great place to end. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, everybody,
Thank
for
you.
coming. Thank you, everybody who contributed. And if we cut you off because we didn't have time, I apologize for that. If you look down in the doobly-doo, you'll find my schedule. If you would have something you'd like to contribute to this show, I totally want to hear from you in that regard. Here are 5 of my favorite channels, and there's actually several more that are in the promoted channels on my YouTube list up there. If you are really, really interested in this method, street epistemology, my favorite collection of resources is on streetepistemology.com, provided by Street Epistemology International, that have collected the resources from this community. The survey, for example, is in that list.
I want to
If
plug
you-
my channel real quick before we're done.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Plug away. Plug.
Sure.
I can't-
My channel is
The
called
OBS will catch up.
Abstract. Nice.
Mhm.
My channel is called AbstractActivistSE. That's all one word. Or right now, it's hard to find in the search because it's not that big of a channel yet. But if you type in "how to instill doubt" by showing how to instill doubt, that'll get you to my channel.
Excellent. I've got your link in the doobly-doo.
In the doobly-doo.
In the doobly-doo. Thank you for joining us for this discussion about SE. If you would like to be a guest on my show on any topic about street epistemology, I've got a whole bunch of categories. I'm sure we can fit you in, and I really look forward to hearing from you.